largest thing collecting artifacts is...
In this video, we reveal 20 mysterious archaeological finds that defy logic and reasoning. There's no need to hold on to your beliefs. These unearthed ancient relics are here to shatter them. Come with us as we take a trip to the world of forbidden secrets of the past. But be careful, some of these finds are so strange, you won't expect them to ever exist. Number 20. The computer of antiquity. Okay, maybe the Antikythera mechanism might ring a bell. And if you're wondering why we are always talking about this discovery in almost every video, it's because of how much it defies logic and reasoning. It is one of the finds that will shatter your beliefs. This discovery was made on the small Greek island of Antikythera at the edge of the Aegean Sea between the mainland and Crete. In 1900, a Greek sponge diver claimed to have found a shipwreck somewhere 50 feet beneath the waves. Further dives confirmed his discovery, and the wreck was thought to be that of an ancient Roman vessel that sank sometime during the 1st century BC. The truth is, no one knows where it was headed, but suggestions by the historians say the ship could have perhaps departed from the busy ancient trading port of Rhodes and headed towards Rome. Over the following year, divers and archaeologists started to work on bringing the artifacts to the surface. And in case you have an easy picture in mind, just trash it, because this recovery led to the death of one diver with 2 more paralyzed from the bends. Right, so sad. But let's look on the brighter side. Their efforts weren't in vain. They recovered a treasure trove of marble sculptures, coins, a bronze statue, and lyre, glasswork, and pottery. But amongst the discoveries was a discovery that at first didn't look like anything serious. It was a lump of corroded bronze and wood. Since the other objects recovered from the wreck were more obviously recognizable as finds of importance, this strange lump was stored away at the National Museum of Archaeology in Athens and all but forgotten about. But years later, thanks to curiosity, experts began to work on this find to know what it was about. They scanned this strange lump, and it revealed previously unseen Greek inscriptions and symbols dotted around about 82 pieces of the whole thing, which includes at least 35 bronze gears, 19 shafts and axles, and 7 pointers, hinting at a device of unparalleled complexity for the ancient world. Soon we learned that this mechanism was some kind of device used to calculate dates and predict astronomical events, making it the oldest known example of an analog computer. It's just strange how anything like this might have existed at the time it did. But you see, every time a discovery is made about the ancient Greeks, it makes us wonder if they were humans. Despite the advancement we claim to have in the present age, there have been many failed attempts to recreate the device to demonstrate how it may have functioned. However, the general belief is the device sat within a wooden case the size of a shoebox. Powered by a hand crank, the intricately linked gears all moved in unison. The gears rotated a series of dials and scales inscribed with Greek zodiac signs and Egyptian calendar days and months. Right now, your question must be, is that all? Well, there's more, but nothing is enough to explain how this mechanism really works. Number 19. Coin stash. Interesting discovery, right? Well, a lot of people have found coin stashes in one place or the other, most times in abandoned buildings or old family buildings with secret rooms. Yeah, all that we've seen in movies. This is actually something similar, just that it comes with a crazy twist, and that is its location. A prison. Not just any prison, but the Port Arthur prison. A prison where prisoners were not allowed to carry money. So yeah, how did a pile of silver shillings worth about a week's salary for one of the penal colony's overseers end up buried beneath the convict's workshop? The coins were found during a 10-month archaeological dig of the foundry and blacksmith site conducted by University of New England postdoctoral research fellow Richard Tuffin and M.S. Zidzik. The find joins other discoveries such as handmade gambling tokens, as well as tobacco pipes and skillfully made metal products. The coins were found on the clay floor of the workshop where copper casting would have taken place. Considering that inmates were punished for having money, we can assume that a crafty inmate stole the coins from an officer and hid them away. By how? It was a long time ago. Who do we ask or arrest? According to analysis of the shillings, the coins date between 1814 and 1844. Apart from the fact that it was a very long time ago, the crafty convict cannot be traced as 10% of the convict population, which at its peak was 1,200 men, had access to the workshop at once. But if we have any idea of a powerful inmate at the time, he might just be our suspect, as those in possession of even handcrafted gambling tokens were the most powerful. Whoever stole the money is without doubt a daring, hardened criminal. The audacity. Number 18. The first people in Britain. Now it's time to delve really deep into our past and say hello to our earliest ancestors in Britain. Archaeologists and paleontologists have unearthed the earliest evidence of human occupation in Britain. Ancient humans occupied Britain over 800,000 years ago, marking the first known settlement in northern Europe, far earlier than previously thought. The new evidence was unearthed by a team of scientists and archaeologists from the Natural History Museum, the British Museum, Queen Mary, University of London, and University College London at an archaeological dig in East Anglia. Before now, evidence told us that humans reached Britain about 700,000 years ago when, for a brief period, the climate was comparable with that of the Mediterranean today. The findings from Happisburg extend the record of human presence in Britain even further back in time. Number 17. The Edwin Smith Papyrus. This is an ancient Egyptian medical text named after Edwin Smith, who bought it in 1862, and the oldest known surgical treatise on trauma. To some surgeons, this text is known as the Secret Book of the Physician. The document may have been a manual of military surgery. It describes 48 cases of injuries, fractures, wounds, dislocations, and tumors. It dates to dynasties 16 to 17 of the Second Intermediate Period in ancient Egypt. The papyrus is unique among the 4 principal medical papyri in existence that survive today, while other papyri, such as the Ebers Papyrus and London Medical Papyrus, are medical texts based on magic. The Edwin Smith Papyrus presents a rational and scientific approach to medicine in ancient Egypt, in which medicine and magic do not conflict. The Edwin Smith Papyrus is a scroll 4.68 meters or 15.3 feet in length. The front side has 377 lines in 17 columns, while the back side has 92 lines in 5 columns. Aside from the fragmentary outer column of the scroll, the remainder of the papyrus is intact, although it was cut into 1-column pages sometime in the 20th century. It is written right to left in hieratic, the Egyptian cursive form of hieroglyphs, in black ink with explanatory glosses in red ink. The vast majority of the papyrus is concerned with trauma and surgery, with short sections on gynecology and cosmetics on the back. On the front are 48 cases of injury. Each case details the type of injury, examination of the patient, diagnosis and prognosis, and treatment. Brilliant, right? But here's the craziest part. The backside consists of 8 magic spells and 5 prescriptions. This shows that spells and incantations may have been used as a last resort in terminal cases. Would you allow anyone to cure you with spells and incantations? Number 16. Altar of Serpent King. This sounds like a movie title, right? But it's not. It's a real discovery, though you'd be reminded of your favorite movies. While excavating in northern Guatemala, archaeologists have come across an ancient altar that depicts scenes reminiscent of the popular fantasy drama television series Game of Thrones. The altar, nearly 1,500 years old, was carved out of limestone and weighed around 1 ton. It was found in a temple at the La Corona archaeological site in the jungle region close to the borders with Mexico and Belize. This altar is the oldest monument on record at the La Corona site from the classic Maya period, which lasted from AD 250 to 900. An analysis of the carvings on the altar revealed how the powerful Ka'anol dynasty started its 200-year rule over much of the Maya lowlands. The altar, carved out of a large slab of limestone, depicts the previously unknown king, Chak Tuk Ikaak, carrying a double-headed serpent. This animal isn't a coincidence, as the rulers of the Ka'anol dynasty were also known as the Snake Kings. The people who existed at his time must have a really interesting story, something that would seem like it's straight out of a fictional book. Number 15. Ancient cuteness. Okay, let's face the truth here. This animal looks a bit scary, but we can't deny the fact that it's cute, too. It is a type of dinosaur called Acidocosaurus mongoliensis. Have you ever seen any dinosaur that looks like this, though? It was widespread in East Asia a long time ago. It was about the size of a turkey, and all it ate were seeds and plants. The remains of this animal were discovered in China back in 2014, with preserved skin feathers and soft tissues which allowed the experts to find out more about it. What do you think about this dinosaur? Does it look like what you can keep as a pet? Number 14. The Georgia Guidestones. This is one of the discoveries that make you stare for a long time, and eventually you don't reach a conclusion easily. These guidestones were a collection of granite stones that formed a monument in Elbert County, Georgia. They were situated off of Guidestone Road, just east of State Highway 77, about 90 miles east of Atlanta, 45 miles from Athens, and 7 miles from the town of Elberton, which is dubbed the granite capital of the world locally. The locally quarried stones consist of a central slab surrounded by 4 other slabs. The 5 slabs, each aligned astronomically, are topped by a capstone which is 19 feet 3 inches. We can't say we don't know anything about their history, as there is some information written on another stone tablet that was buried in the ground a short distance to the west of the building. But you see, what is unclear is the function of the monument. However, a man who goes by the alias Robert C. Christian, who hired the project in June 1979, wrote to the Elberton Granite Finishing Company, explaining that the stones would serve as a compass, calendar, and clock, and should be able to withstand catastrophic events on behalf of a small group of loyal Americans. Number 13. Dead Sea Scrolls. In the late 1946 and early 1947, teenagers of Bedouin were tending their goats and sheep near the ancient settlement of Qumran, located on the northwest shore of the Dead Sea in what is now known as the West Bank. One of the young shepherds tossed a rock into an opening on the side of a cliff and was surprised to hear a shattering sound. He and his companions later entered the cave and found a collection of large clay jars, 7 of which contained leather and papyrus scrolls. An antiquities dealer bought the cache, which ultimately ended up in the hands of various scholars who estimated that the texts were upwards of 2,000 years old. After word of the discovery got out, Bedouin treasure hunters and archaeologists unearthed tens of thousands of additional scroll fragments from 10 nearby caves. Together, they make up between 800 and 900 manuscripts. What is yet to be known is the origin of the Dead Sea Scrolls. However, it is known that they were written between the 3rd century BC to the 2nd century AD. Surprisingly, the Dead Sea Scrolls include fragments from every book of the Old Testament except for the Book of Esther. Scholars have speculated that traces of this missing book, which recounts the story of the eponymous Jewish queen of Persia, either disintegrated over time or have yet to be uncovered. The only complete book of the Hebrew Bible preserved among the manuscripts from Qumran is Isaiah. This copy, dated to the 1st century BC, is considered the earliest Old Testament manuscript still in existence. Number 12. The Phaistos Disc. Now, you're probably wondering what exactly this is. It is known as the Phaistos Disc, a fired clay disc probably of Minoan origin, measuring some 16 centimeters in diameter and impressed on both sides with 242 symbols set in a spiral arrangement. It was discovered in 1908 in the old palace of Minoan Phaistos on Crete. Little is known for certain about the disc, as scholars still debate its origin, manufacture, purpose, and meaning. The disc is now generally accepted as Cretan in origin, and therefore is probably a representation of the Minoan language in use during the period at which scholars date the disc from 1850 to 1550 BCE. Arguments that it is of native Minoan manufacture include the presence of popular Minoan artistic motifs such as dolphins, cattle, lilies, and crocuses. The fact that the symbols are arranged in a spiral is also given as evidence supporting the Minoan origin. There's also speculation that it was probably handmade because it measures 15.8 to 16.5 centimeters in diameter and 1.6 to 2.1 centimeter in thickness. Just by looking at this disc, what purpose do you think it served? Number 11 drowned Bronze Age city. All southern Iraq knew was that they were battling with extreme drought that had cost them so much, making life hell for them. Large amounts of water were diverted from the Mosul Dam, which is Iraq's most important water reservoir, to prevent harvests from drying out. But little did they know that the low water level was about to reveal the remains of a 3,400-year-old city that disappeared years ago. It seems this area swallowed a lot of interesting places, as scientists discovered a fortress-like palace located nearby a small hill near the site in 2018. This discovery reveals that the surface we thread may be concealing a whole nation. Who knows what lies down there? Number 10. Göbekli Tepe. Back in the 1960s, a little-known area of farmland in southeastern Turkey yielded evidence of an ancient monument so old that many archaeologists couldn't believe the find. This structure has existed since the time experts believe humans were not yet developed to the point of having the ability to build such. It was discovered in Göbekli Tepe Hill, and it is one of the world's most exciting yet strangest ancient sites. And it is not alone. Around a dozen other sites of similar age are also under excavation in the so-called Stone Hills area, an area extending for about 100 square kilometers around Göbekli Tepe. According to research, Göbekli Tepe would be at least 11,000 years old. But what was this site used for? Some believe that it was for ceremonial or religious use, while others claimed that it may be one of the earliest examples of human settlement. The latter is probably unlikely, as the site, which sits on top of a rocky mountaintop, 1,000 feet above the valley, doesn't appear to have a reliable water source. This would be critical for long-term human settlement, although the valley below would have had arable land and water, and so till today the purpose of this remains a mystery. Number 9. The Book of the Devil. They say bargain with the devil and you may wind up with a golden fiddle, supernatural guitar-playing ability, or a room full of gleaming alchemized straw. Or maybe a mysterious, magnificent book. This Book of the Devil has a very crazy story. According to legend, in the early 13th century in a Benedictine monastery east of Prague, a certain monk Hermanus was sentenced to be buried alive for breaking his monastic vows. His punishment could be cancelled if he agreed to make the most magnificent book the world had ever seen, containing all human knowledge. But he had to do it in one night. How is that even possible? It was around midnight when Hermanus realized he would not be able to finish his task, and so he asked the devil to help him. In return, the monk included in the Bible a fanciful image of the devil, which is why the book is popularly called the Devil's Bible. The book, named Codex Gigas, the largest medieval Bible in the world, is 36 inches, equivalent to 3 feet, by almost 20 inches and weighs nearly 165 pounds. One page has a full-page illustration of the devil. On the facing page is an illustration of what heaven might look like. In addition to the Latin Bible, the book contains an encyclopedia, Josephus's Antiquities of the Jews, a list of the monks in the monastery, mystical incantations for everything from Kurinuavalg illnesses to catching thieves, and more. That's a strange mix, if you ask me. There have been speculations that the book most likely was made by one scribe and probably took more than 25 years to complete. Hermanus was said to be a recluse, and his living alone is probably how the legend of his sentence to be buried alive, or walled up in a room, got started. Do you even believe this legend? Number 8. Mausoleum of the first Chinese emperor. Now this is another discovery that looks like it was straight out of an Indiana Jones film. What you're looking at is an army frozen in stone, protecting an unopened ancient tomb rumored to be filled with priceless treasures that are protected by deadly booby traps. Now, no one wants to confirm if this is even true or not. But what's the idea behind this frozen army? The founder of China's Qin dynasty, Emperor Qin Shi Huang, who reigned between 221 BCE and 210 BCE, was the first emperor of a unified China. It was he who created the Great Wall of China, as well as laid down a vast national road system. But perhaps most famously, it was Qin Shi Huang who built a huge stone army, known as the Terracotta Army, which consists of some 8,000 life-size statues of soldiers, as well as numerous horses and chariots. Surrounding the mausoleum of Qin Shi Huang, the Terracotta Army was likely built to protect the emperor in the afterlife. The emperor was traditionally portrayed as something of a tyrannical monster, although recent historical rereadings are beginning to question this image. He was said to have drank wine laced with mercury to live forever, which is something that probably accounts for his rather short lifespan. Whether it's true or not, everyone is scared to explore the emperor's tomb remains. The foremost reason for this reluctance lies in the fear that excavations could harm the tomb, potentially causing the loss of invaluable historical insights. Presently, the only way to access the tomb involves invasive archaeological methods, fraught with the risk of irreparable damage. The experts are reminded of the 1970s excavations of the city of Troy, which obliterated nearly all traces of the town aimed to uncover. Just to be safe, can we just leave the emperor and his armies to continue resting in peace? Number 7. Eyeliner and wax remover. Haven't you ever wondered what fashion and hygiene looked like in the past? Archaeologists have discovered hundreds of items buried with wealthy Anglo-Saxons, which include eyeliner and earwax removers. Experts say they found the grave goods after excavating 141 burial sites in Wendover, Buckinghamshire. The artifacts ranged from jewelry and beads to swords, shields, and spears, all buried with the dead. But the most eye-catching find was the personal hygiene kits, including earwax removers, toothpicks, and tweezers. Researchers even found brooches, combs, and a cosmetic tube that may have contained a substance used as eyeliner. The site is one of the largest Anglo-Saxon burial grounds unearthed in Great Britain. Now, how old do you think these are? These items are said to date back to the 5th and 6th centuries, a period filled with gaps in historical and archaeological records. This is one of the finds you never expect to exist, but they will contribute a significant amount to the understanding of how people in Anglo-Saxon Britain lived their lives. Number 6. Omen's 4,000-year-old board game. One quick question, what's your favorite game? To some, it is board games, but the majority just enjoy video games now. As far back as 4,000 years ago, they seemed to enjoy stone board games. This was discovered while archaeologists were working in Oman's Kumaira Valley. They unearthed this rare artifact, a stone board game dating back some 4,000 years. The board features grid-like markings and holes for cups. It was found at a site near the village of Ain Bani Saida. There is archaeological evidence for various kinds of board games from all over the world dating back millennia. Senet and Mehen in ancient Egypt, for example, or a strategy game called Ludus Latrunculorum, which means the game of mercenaries favored by Roman legions. The board just discovered at the Omani site might be a precursor to an ancient Middle Eastern game known as the Royal Game of Ur, or the Game of 20 Squares, a two-player game that may have been one of the precursors to backgammon, or was simply replaced in popularity by backgammon. Of course, no one knew how the game was played until a curator at the British Museum named Irving Finkel translated a Babylonian clay tablet in the early 1980s that turned out to be a description of the rules. Like backgammon, it's essentially a race game in which players compete to see who can move all their pieces along the course of the board before their opponent. Would you like to play this game? Now it's time for today's subscriber pick. This statue is really one of the weirdest discoveries on Earth. Apart from the fact that it is decorated with mysterious hues, the erected phallus makes it more like the creation of a bored sculptor. While it is unclear whether this statue is telling a story or not, we do know that Michelangelo also created a long-forgotten statue with an unusually erect phallus. This work of art made everyone wonder what was going on in the mind of this legendary artist. Perhaps a wild imagination or an untold story. This brings us back to this confusing image. Were statues like these a norm in the early years? Could it have been created for a special reason? Or do you also think that it is a work of a bored sculptor? Let us know what you think in the comments section. Number 5. Ancient theater bathroom. During an excavation at a historic theater in the ancient city of Smyrna, which is located within the borders of Izmir in Turkey, archaeologists found a communal toilet that was likely used by the actors who performed at the place. According to archaeologists, the toilet was likely installed during a renovation of the theater in the 2nd century, and amazingly, it remained in use for about 300 years. The theater itself is about 2,400 years old. Though we may not know much about that period, this discovery offers insight into the social and cultural life of that period. Number 4. Human remains in Kalao Cave. In the Philippines' Kalao Cave, ancient bones and teeth were discovered, and this discovery led to the unveiling of a previously unknown species related to humans called Homo luzonensis. The fossils belong to 2 adults and 1 child who lived between 50,000 and 67,000 years ago. This time frame means Luzonensis would have lived at the same time as Neanderthals, Denisovans, Homo sapiens, and the small-bodied Homo floresiensis. Like other extinct hominins, Luzonensis is more of a close relative than a direct ancestor. Back in 2007, a single-foot bone was found in the cave and dated to 67,000 years ago. During excavations in 2011 and 2015, researchers found 12 additional hand and foot bones, including a partial femur and teeth, in the same layer of the cave. The researchers have named the new species Luzonensis because of where it was found on the island of Luzon. Now, we can say they are the earliest human remains found in the Philippines. Previously, Homo sapiens remains were found on Palawan Island and dated to between 30,000 and 40,000 years ago. However, Luzonensis is different from other species. That's all because of the distinct premolar teeth, which vary considerably from anything identified in the other species belonging to the Homo genus. Number 3. Origin of the Italian language. Just as with other languages like French, Spanish, Portuguese, Romanian, Ladin, and Catalan, the Italian language derives from Latin. However, the amazing thing is, it wasn't derived from the classical Latin that Cicero or Julius Caesar spoke, but from what linguists call vulgar Latin that was spoken in the Middle Ages. During this period, people didn't speak classical Latin anymore since they didn't know it. Only writers and scholars continued to use Latin in their books. Around the 11th century, Vulgar Latin, which started during the fall of the empire as a language for the people, became the language for commerce and religious propaganda. But only starting from the 13th century did it firmly establish itself as a literary language. This is where the Italian language began to develop until it fully developed into what is spoken today. Number 2. Olduvai Gorge fossils. The Olduvai Gorge was discovered in 1911, a discovery that established the fact that Africa was where humans originally evolved from. There are so many discoveries about the evolution of humans, and this discovery further escalated the studies of early man. Thousands of stone tools were found over many years, but the discovery of a robust hominid, which is a more primitive species than the early man in 1959, caused quite a stir on the ladder of evolutionary thinking at the time. In 1960, there was another discovery known as Homo habilis, which seemed to indicate two different species of hominid living in the same time frame. It seems that one was a tool maker and went on to survive while the other became extinct. Can we totally understand human evolution? I guess not. Number 1. Pompeii slave room. While slavery might be a thing of the past in so many places of the world in this century, it was common back in the early years. This Pompeii discovery has now shone a light on the era of slavery around 79 AD. Archaeologists have now unearthed the remains of a slave room at a Roman villa in Pompeii, which was buried in ash when Mount Vesuvius erupted in 79 AD. The 16-square-meter room had 3 wooden beds, ceramic pitchers, and a chamber pot. 2 beds were about 1.7 meters long and one just 1.4 meters with just one small window. In the corners of the room there were amphorae, a type of container, that seemingly belonged to the master of the house. It is believed that slaves kept their belongings in 2 amphorae under the beds. The archaeologists also found a wooden box in the middle of the room and a drawbar leaning against the bed. While many books never wrote about slaves, this discovery is a rare insight into slavery and the daily life of the enslaved. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.